Well, today I'm going to talk to you about the World Packaging Organization and the state of industry globally for sustainability and circular packaging design. And I think it's really important that we start with the goals for the WPO to understand what it is we're trying to achieve globally. And that is to reduce food waste, to reduce packaging waste, and to increase packaging awareness through education. The WPO would like to target unnecessary packaging, encourage the phasing out of materials that are not recyclable or recoverable, and encourage the development of mono-material packaging. And so the WPO works with many partners around the world. And as you can see on the screen, we have quite a lot. But it's really important that we're focused on not only circular and sustainable packaging design, but also safe food packaging design and the important role that packaging plays in food loss and waste. Because if we are talking about true sustainability or true circularity, we need to look at the environmental impacts of not only the materials that we use, but also the products. And so one of the areas that's really important for businesses, new businesses, particularly if they're not aware of them, is to really look at the 17 principles of the United Nations for Sustainable Development Goals, as we call them, and see how many of the 17 principles they can use within their business. And you would be surprised across all of your business how many of these you can implement into your business and everyday capabilities. And so one of the areas that's really important is to really take this moment in time and to stop designing your packaging as it used to be, and really stop and think about it and think, is it time that I could redesign my packaging to ensure that I can lower environmental impacts, to ensure that I can reduce it, reuse it, recycle, to understand how to eliminate problematic materials, and to ensure that it is truly circular by design. And one of the most important areas is about getting this balance right. And I talk about this all the time. We do need to get the balance right, and we need to have the science behind it and research behind it and the evidence behind it to ensure that we're not reactionary and that we're not moving from one material to another without really understanding the environmental impacts of that shift. We need to also make sure that we understand, particularly food and beverage businesses, that there are sustainable packaging targets and packaging targets around the world, locally, regionally, etc. But there's also food waste targets, and we need to make sure that we have that balance right, particularly because food waste is such a problem globally. Because if it was a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world. So we're trying to find that optimum pack design. We're trying to find that sweet spot because we don't want to waste food and we don't want to waste packaging materials. So we don't want to underpack, we don't want to overpack. We've got to somehow find that sweet spot in the middle to ensure that we've got the perfect environmental impact. And so a part of what the WPO does is it works with its 64 member countries around the world to really better understand, well, what does sustainability really look like? And trust me, it looks very different in every country, in every region, developed, developing, all the way around the world. And so there is an annual position paper available, and this is the new position paper, and it really tries to put in perspective what all the countries are thinking, how they're working, and what regulations they're working through. And one of the areas that is very loud, and it is a conversation in all corners of the globe, is extended producer responsibility. And extended producer responsibility, or EPR, in all its forms, and it is different throughout the world, is basically trying to put the responsibility back on the people to put the packaging out into the market. And there are many benefits of EPR schemes as long as they are suited to your country and your region and your capabilities and infrastructure and facilities, etc. But we need to try and look at harmonising EPR across all of the regions, and that is one of the most challenging areas that we're discussing on a global scale and through the WPO. And there's also needs to be an understanding that there are different approaches to the strategy, and that's okay. as long as they are working for your country and your region and they suit the end-of-life services and the responsible design for products and packaging and infrastructure, etc. It's okay to be different from other people as long as it works for you. There are many product stewardship programs and EPR programs around the world. And I think that it's important to understand that it's just a piece of the puzzle. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And if it works for you, then that's fantastic, because it can help you to improve your recycling rates, eliminate materials going to landfill, and also reduce problematic materials and single-use plastic in your country. And one of the interesting areas for EPR in Europe is a discussion around eco-modulation. And eco-modulation is very much penalising producers of problematic materials and difficult to recycle packaging. And it also provides incentive for materials that are recyclable and recoverable. So if you're doing the right thing, you get incentivized. If you're doing the wrong thing, you get penalized. And that is eco-modulation. And other countries like Italy and Germany and many others are looking at this as well. And then we also have this revision at the moment in Europe. The European Commission is revising their packaging and packaging waste directives. And they're looking at changing some of their regulations, and particularly focusing on minimum mandatory recycling targets for new member states, changes for mandatory reuse and refill targets, which is really interesting, improvement in reporting and labelling obligations, and also trying to see whether they may or may not consider counting chemical recycling as a part of the targets. And then if you come down from Europe and look in Asia, this is what Asia looks like. And this is so many different variations of not only EPR, but also product stewardship programs that are happening all the way down to Australia and New Zealand. And one of the things that I like about this is it looks really busy and overwhelming, but I think that the overwhelming aspect is good because it's a positive step. So people are working on this in their countries. People are trying to make changes and to improve what's happening in their countries. And that's something that I like to take from this slide. And then we have many, many different single-use plastic directives all the way around the world. And every single month, there are different countries that are banning or introducing SUP regulations. And Scotland, Japan, and India are just some of the countries that have recently developed single-use plastic regulations. And then we've had quite a large conversation around ensuring that compostable packaging that is put out onto the market all the way around the world is in fact certified to the region's certification standards. And this is really important. And this is important for greenwashing and misleading consumers, and also for ensuring that we don't contaminate recycling streams. So certified compostable packaging is very, very important piece of this puzzle. And then obviously we have container deposit schemes, return and earn schemes. And again, we are seeing more and more countries around the world developing CDS or CRS programs. They call them different things in different parts of the world. And one of the other areas that we are seeing some really important improvements in is that it brings the informal workers and the informal collectors into the program and incentivizes them a little bit more, gives them the capability to earn, to be able to provide food for their families. And container deposit schemes have many, many benefits, but it is very much around changing consumer recycling behaviour and incentivising them with a financial reward. And one of the things that I find interesting about CDS schemes around the world is there are many countries that don't in fact give money. They actually trade it through either food or transportation. And if you ever have an opportunity, have a look at some of the CDS schemes around the world, and it can be you bring back some recycling for us, and we will give you rice, a bag of rice, or we will give you some tickets for the bus or the train. And there are different ways that you can incentivize consumers. And then obviously we have the Plastics Pact Network through Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and that seems to be really increasing in speed. And there are a lot more countries and regions that are popping up every single day around the world. And this is very much around the brands taking responsibility for what they're putting out into the market and being a part of the conversation to improve the amount of single-use plastic and plastic that's put out into the market, and ensuring that what is put out into the market has recycled content and has an end market. And obviously recycled content is just a really fantastic conversation at the moment, because it's about making sure that whatever we're putting out the market, we're putting back into the packaging. So we're making sure that it's circular by design. And the thing that I love is that you're starting to see more and more of the brands really telling the consumers this. They're telling them that it's recycled content. They're telling them that they've reduced a certain amount of tonnage in single-use plastic, and they're trying to get their customers involved in understanding what they're doing with their recycled content. And obviously recycled content is not just for plastics, it's not just for rigid. It's been happening for a million years in many other substrates, but it's certainly a very loud part of our conversation. And then we have conversations around return to store programs, and they are increasing around the world. And certainly a conversation that we're having in Australia, as well as in the United Kingdom and Europe and America and many other places. But return to store programs are popping up more and more. But we also need to make sure that we have end markets for all of the soft plastics that is returned and reprocessed. And at the moment, a lot of it, as we know, is being reprocessed in things like furniture and flower beds and roads. Roads was a very successful program. And we are seeing more and more countries around the world, particularly focusing on the road aspect. And then closed loop collection programs is a really important area for materials that are difficult to recycle or capture. And so taking responsibility for what you're putting out on the market and realizing that it may not be able to be captured in a materials recovery facility or a regional collection infrastructure, and saying, okay, well, I'll take responsibility for this. And so closed loop collection programs, product stewardship programs around this are very, very important pieces of the puzzle. And also refill and reuse. Refillable and reusable packaging is underutilized, and there's still a lot of opportunity here to really take this and run with it and design your packaging to use as little as single-use plastic as possible. And what you are using, incorporating recycled content and making sure that the customers are a part of this conversation. They're a part of the journey with you, because they're the ones that are coming back and refilling and reusing over and over and over again. And we've seen it in store programs around the world. We're seeing a lot more opportunities online and in home, so you can order it online. And we are seeing a lot more products that are doing refillable and reusable solutions. And then we are also seeing some really innovative people and companies around the world saying, well, hang on, we live in a regional area. What can we do? Can we bring this to people? And so there are apps and software systems now available where you can order your refillable solutions and they will come to you, or it will be in a regional area where you can easily go to and refill your products. So these are great solutions. And some of these are from China and parts of Asia, and also Indonesia. The Cyclist solution at the top is from Indonesia, and it's a really great solution. They come to you, they come to your door. And then when we talk about consumer education and communicating honestly and truthfully to consumers, we need to make sure that we are seeing more and more on-pack labeling programs that really do honestly communicate to consumers whether something is recyclable or not. And even if it's not recyclable, making sure that you're telling the consumers that, so that they can effectively put that product or that separable component in the right bin, so that it doesn't end up in the wrong bin. And so there are many on-pack labeling programs around the world, but three that really do stand out as some of the leading ones is the OPRL program in the United Kingdom, the How to Recycle program in the United States, and the ARL program in Australia and New Zealand. And then when we move to materials recovery facilities, it's helping the packaging designers and technologists to understand that recycling is more than what an item's made of. It's everything. It's the size, it's the weight, it's the color, it's the inks, it's the adhesives, it's the shape. And if you don't understand that and you've never been to a materials recovery facility, then that's your action for today. Please go to a materials recovery facility and have a look at it and really understand how it works and what materials it captures and what materials it doesn't capture and why. And really look at the way you're designing your packaging. And some amazing technologies that are coming out are things like Holy Grail 2.0. And Holy Grail 2.0 has not only been working very hard on trials, they've now announced this year that they have a pilot that's being launched in France. And this marks the new phase for this project. And at the end of the day, the Holy Grail is a digital watermark, and it's an imperceptible barcode on the packaging. And I really encourage you to have a look at the Holy Grail and watch what's happening, because they have, in all their trials, they've reached a detection rate of 99%, which proves that we can achieve more accurate sorting in materials recovery facilities. And then you have C-Flex, and C-Flex in Europe, again, if you don't know it, I would encourage you to start looking at it and using the guides to really look at the way you're designing your packaging. But this is the next generation of flexible packaging. And they have been working hard on developing next generation recycling plants. They do a lot of trials, and they also have materials recovery reports that are now available, which is comprehensive studies on all of the different samples and how they behave in optical sorting processes. So have a look at C-Flex. It's fantastic. And what's interesting is we're seeing more and more countries around the world, this is their standard. This is becoming the global standard for flexible packaging. And I know in Australia, it is also one of the standards that they follow. And then trying to look at some difficult to recycle materials through materials recovery like soft plastics and flexibles, and trying to come up with other ways to be able to capture it and collect it. And curbside collection of monomaterial soft plastics is happening, and there are a lot of trials underway around the world, and we are seeing more and more of this happening around the world because we're trying to work out a way to be able to capture this material and make sure it doesn't end up in landfill. And then there's the advancement of technology and looking at circularity by design or circular design and saying, well, what's next? And what's next is things like the KitKat wrapper, where they are actually working with over 10 partners to develop KitKat wrappers that can be returned to store and then put back through chemical or advanced recycling and put back into another KitKat wrapper. And this is what we want to see. We want to see circularity. We want to see packaging being put back into a bin and then made into more packaging in the future. And we've seen recently Cadbury and KitKat announce that they have now 30% recycled materials incorporated in some of their solutions. And then from a WPO perspective, we wanted to help a lot of the countries and a lot of the members that really do need some assistance. They need to understand how to design packaging for circularity and to have a common understanding of what it really looks like for the rest of the world. And it's too easy for many of us to sit in developed countries and to assume that people know how to do this. And so this is just a fantastic tool that's been developed by the WPO in partnership with the University of Applied Science in Austria, Circular Analytics and ECR Community. And it's a practical design tool that's really easy to understand. It's free of charge, and it's to help have design standards harmonized internationally. And this is really important. And so this is free on the WPO website. Anybody can use this, and you do not have to be technical to be able to use this. You can pick this guide up if you're in sales and marketing, business development. It doesn't matter what you're in. You can use this guide. It's really easy to use, really easy to understand, and it's been designed with the traffic light system, which will help you to understand how to better design your packaging. And you will be able to adjust your packaging and redesign your packaging based on the guide. And it has material-specific recommendations and, again, a traffic light system. So it will give you advice on what to avoid and what to look for when you're designing your packaging. And the best part about this is that we are working very hard in the background with many of our WPO members to translate this guide, because we want to make sure this guide is accessible to everyone in every corner of the world so that we can help them to design better packaging with a lower environmental impact. And we now have 7 countries translated, and watch this space. We're going to have a few more announcements shortly. And we're really proud of this. We have English, we have Arabic, Spanish, German, Czech, Georgian, and Hungarian. And we also have Portuguese, almost finished, Thai almost finished, Urdu almost finished, and Hindu. So watch this space. All of these are available free of charge for anyone to access. And we hope that you will share them with your colleagues and share them with other people, because this is the whole point of this guide. And then we also have a how to use guide, which will help people. And then we have waste stream mapping tools. And at the moment, we have 27. So we had 21. We now have 27 most recently. And these are for you, and these are designed for you if you are exporting to any of these countries. Again, they're all free of charge and available on the WPO website. And the idea is, if you are exporting to any of these markets, you can have a look, you can go online and have a look at the country's capabilities. What's recyclable, conditionally recyclable, and not recyclable. So it will help you to design your packaging to ensure that it meets the standards for the countries that you're exporting in. And then the WPO has the World Star Packaging Awards, and 2 of the special awards are very important to my portfolio, obviously, Sustainable Packaging Design and Safe Food Packaging Design. And again, these are designed to recognise companies that are working very hard to develop innovative packaging to be more sustainable, to lower environmental impacts, and also to prevent and minimise food loss and waste. These are some of the winners for 2022. And as you can see, we ended up with 5 winners in 2022 because there were such amazing solutions that entered the World Star Awards. And with packaging that saves food, whilst we have less entries, and I'd love to see more and more around the world, and we are working towards that, we do have wonderful companies around the world that are working in this space, that identify that they need to design better packaging at the start to minimise and prevent food loss and waste across their value chain. Again, I really encourage all of you here today to really think about whether you are designing packaging that saves food. And if you're not, give it a go. And we'd love to see you enter your local country or regional awards program. And then obviously, if you win, then go into the World Star Awards. And then the WPO is working with the AIP to really raise the profile of the important role that packaging plays in minimising food loss and waste, and helping people around the world to use the Safe Food Packaging Design Guidelines so that we have a harmonised approach. We have a consistent approach to designing packaging to minimise food loss and waste. But it's really very much around getting the balance right, working to ensure that we offer the lowest environmental impact possible, and understanding your local, country, regional packaging targets or sustainable targets, and also your food waste targets. And at the end of the day, it's about using less, using it longer, using it again and again and again and again, as many times as possible, and making sure that it is clean. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And I hope that puts the global world of sustainability in perspective, or just a little bit in perspective. And I welcome any questions. Thank you.